Since almost every object has a prototype, let's go ahead and look at some objects, take a look at the prototype, and what the object gains from that prototype. Now, let's go ahead and start with an array. Now, I'll be doing all of this at the console because these will just be some simple commands that I'm going to be entering. So we'll be doing it here. So let me first start by creating an array. So very simple array. Just going to have 3 numbers in it like this. I'm going to go ahead and press return. Now let me take a look at that array here at the console. We can see the array elements, but notice down here we have this what looks like a property underscore underscore proto underscore underscore. Well, this is a link to the prototype object. And so if we open that up, we can see what the prototype provides for arrays. Now, with arrays, with that specific object type, there are a number of things provided from the prototype. You can see all of the methods that we get that can be used with an array are contained here. So for example, let's say we wanted to add a value to this array. So array.push, and let's go ahead and add a 4 to that array. Now when we look at the array, we now have another item there. Now where did that push method come from? How come we're able to use that? Well, you undoubtedly see where this is going. It comes from the prototype object. So if we scroll down here far enough, we can see push. So that's why we're able to use push. And so every array that is created had access to this method. And each array doesn't have to use up memory storing all of these methods. They're all stored on the prototype object, and then they get access to them. They can borrow them when needed. All right, now let's look at some other ways to display the prototype. I've just been using what's provided with the Chrome browser and the way it displays things, and I'm able to open it and then see the prototype object. But we could also do this. That thing that looked like a property that I was talking about. 2 underscores, proto 2 underscores. That is available to display the prototype as well. And we can see that it looks similar to what I was looking at before. Now, before you go crazy with this underscore underscore proto underscore underscore, let me just mention this particular way of accessing the prototype shouldn't be used. I'm just showing it here because of different ways you can take a look at a prototype, but it shouldn't be used. It was never a part of the initial ECMAScript specification. It was just added by browsers and eventually got popular over the years and then was added to the specification later. But it was still discouraged to use it. So it's more advisable to use object.getPrototypeOf, which we're going to take a look at. And then later when we look at setting the prototype, we'll look at some commands to do that. So with object.getPrototypeOf, we can also look at the prototype. So let's do that. Inside of the parentheses, this is a static method. So object.getPrototype. Inside the parentheses, we put the object, in this case, the array that we created. And we open that up and we can see the same type of things we were seeing before when we were looking at the prototype. So that's another way to see the prototype of an object. And notice all the features we get added to an array because of the prototype. Okay, let's do a different one. Let's do a date. So I'm going to declare a date variable and then just create a new date for today's date. Now, because of the way dates are set up, I just can't enter a date like that and be able to see the prototype. That basically just uses this toString method to display the date in a string format. That's what that does for me. But I can do a console.dir, and there I can open up and see more about this. So here is our proto that points to the prototype object, and you can see all of the different methods that dates have as well. There are a bunch of them. So it makes sense that those would be on the prototype object and not on each individual date. So because of the prototype, once again, because of that prototype object, we can do date.getDate and basically get the day of the month. We can use any of those methods that are available. So all of the built-in JavaScript objects that are a part of JavaScript, they all have prototypes with them. We've looked at only 2, but they all have prototypes, and you can experiment with that. You can try that, and I encourage you to spend some time. Create some of the different built-in objects that are available, and just open them up, take a look at the prototype, see what's available on the prototype. Now, what about plain JavaScript objects? That's what I want to look at next. So let me create just a plain JavaScript object. I'm going to have one property name. I just barely created this, and it's not a built-in JavaScript object. So does it come with a prototype when I create it like this? Well, let's find out. Let's open that up. We see the property, and sure enough, it has a prototype as well. And if I open that up, there are some things that I get as a part of a plain JavaScript object. Notice there is a method isPrototype of. That's a way to check if some object is a prototype of another object. So there are some things we get with the prototype object that comes with a plain JavaScript object. And one of those is value of. There we get the value. Now let's just use the has-on property here, and let's see what is returned for value of. This is the method we just used. It's false. So it's not an own property of OBJ. That's another way to indicate that something we're using is not a part of the prototype object, because this method or this property that is a method is not an own property of OBJ. It's getting it from the prototype. Now, one more thing I want to show before we move on here. If I look at the array again, I come down here to the prototype object, I open that up, and I scroll down all the way down the bottom. Look, there's another one here, and that's object. This is array, which we'd expect. This one is object. So what's going on here? Well, this is the prototype chain. So this is what we're going to talk about in the next topic. Prototype objects can also have prototypes. So let's move on and we'll talk about that.